Welcome to this webinar investigating Canadian children's food security and the relationship with low self-esteem and self-efficacy for healthy lifestyle choices, such as making healthy food choices or participating in physical activity. So what are self-esteem and self-efficacy as concepts? Well, self-esteem can be described as the attitude you have towards yourself, which could be positive or negative. And self-efficacy is someone's belief in their ability to achieve goals. So how confident you are in your ability to make healthy food choices or participate in physical activity. With regards to food security and mental health, we know from the literature that food security or low food security can have an impact on mental health. It can influence children's school attendance and also their behaviour. And low self-esteem and low self-efficacy has been suggested to be precursors to mental health concerns in future adulthood. So it is really important that we understand about these factors, so self-esteem and self-efficacy among children, particularly those who might be food insecure, because this means that we could mitigate the risks now, earlier on in life, and potentially reduce risk for development of mental health conditions or concerns in adulthood. So what did we investigate in this study? Well, we wanted to determine whether there were differences in self-esteem and self-efficacy for healthy lifestyle choices between children living in food secure and food insecure households. We also wanted to determine whether the association between household food insecurity, self-esteem, and self-efficacy differed by gender. So where and with whom was this study conducted? Well, we had over 5,000 students who were 10 and 11 years of age in Canada complete a survey. So they completed a survey through the broader Children's Lifestyle and School Performance Study, and their caregivers also completed a survey so we could have responses from both children and their parents. So we found that a quarter of children in our study were living in households that were categorised as food insecure. So this meant that they might have been anxious or worried about where food was going to come from. They might have run out of food and didn't have money to buy more, or a variety of other factors. We also found that girls were particularly vulnerable to having low self-esteem and low self-efficacy, and especially girls from moderately food insecure households. So compared to girls from food secure households, these girls had 67% higher risk of having low self-esteem. And they also had lower self-efficacy for healthy lifestyle choices. So overall, they were more vulnerable to having low self-esteem, low self-efficacy, as compared to those girls who were from households that didn't worry about where their food was coming from or didn't run out of food. Why is this important? Well, we know, as we've said before, that food insecurity can have negative implications for school attendance or school achievement, behavioural outcomes, and it can potentially impact people's risk of mental health concerns in later life. The evidence is suggesting a bidirectional relationship between food insecurity and mental health, which means that, for example, depression could exacerbate food insecurity, and food insecurity could exacerbate depression. So it is really important to be understanding then how these potential precursors of mental health concern, like low self-esteem and low self-efficacy, could be helped or mitigated earlier on in life, so we could potentially reduce the risk of these mental health concerns later. So what can we do to help? Well, given that household income or income is a key driver of food security, or whether someone is food insecure, in the evidence base, there's a very strong relationship there. So that's why we recommend that increasing the household income of low-income families, such as through increasing the social security rate, could help them get out of poverty or could help increase the income of these families. We also recommend that schools are an ideal setting to build or further build self-esteem and self-efficacy among children. They are already doing great work in this area, but we could really enhance this to improve also school achievement and reduce mental health issues. And we also recommend conducting similar research in Australia using a comprehensive household food insecurity measure, such as they use in the US and Canada, because we know that there are similarities between Australia, USA, and Canada in terms of the context. So it would be really helpful to understand if we could find similar findings in the Australian context. So we know that policy could really have a good impact on those structural determinants of food insecurity, such as income, and potentially prevent mental health concerns later on in life. And as we've said, those schools could be those ideal settings. They could maximise life chances, such as children's education, their employment, which could then have ramifications for their food security. So good education and employment could then have an impact on household income, which could have an impact on their food security status. And importantly, girls do require targeted support because in our research, they were shown to be more vulnerable to the low self-esteem and low self-efficacy, the girls from those food insecure households. And previous research has shown that girls typically have a less favourable view of themselves and their potential future life chances. Families are sometimes reported to confide in girls more so than boys in terms of their food insecurity issues in the household. So potentially parents are disclosing more information to girls. They might then have impacted self-esteem or self-efficacy as a result. So that's why girls do need more targeted support